Has anyone ever talked about the Wisps in Disney Pixar's Brave being evil yet? Actually, I don't care if anyone else has covered it before, we're talking about it right now. Sit down, stay tuned. Hey guys, I'm Megan, and this, if you somehow missed it, is the Fangirl, where my biggest passion in life is destroying your childhood memories. And do you remember those cute little blue, floaty, orb, children-like thingies in Brave called the Wisps? They're actually really disturbing and creepy, and I'm kind of shocked that the movie itself doesn't take more time to explain what they are. Now, if you need a quick refresher on Brave, Merida is an old-timey Scottish princess being forced to marry, and in her duress, Merida ends up being led by the Wisps to meet a witch who ultimately turns her mother, Elinor, into a bear. And apparently the only way to change Mama Bear back into a queen bee is for Merida to realize that she doesn't really want to lose her mother. Basically, this movie was like Pixar deciding that it was time for them to make a princess/mother-daughter movie. Then they hardcore shoved out the female voices in creative control of the production. So if parts of the movie's plot are confusing and don't quite add up, you're not crazy. There are a lot of flaws in this movie, and I take issue with the plot in general, which I have talked about at length in other videos. Kindly go watch them if you're interested. But aside from all the things with Merida and her mother, Brave also has this strange subplot with Mordu, the legendary bear who has the strength of 10 men and is inexplicably hostile. Like, I know in general that you don't fork around with bears, but Mordu has an anger problem that doesn't make any sense. You see, the movie decides to raise the stakes of Queen Elinor's plight by having her go from a bear who is all prim and proper and very human-esque, where she's demonstrating that she remembers her manners and she wants to wear her crown, and then Elinor shifts into a wild bear that has no memory of her origin, and she can become very dangerous and impulsive. Which means if Elinor doesn't get her curse reverted, it's not like Merida's gonna go, oh, here's my mother's brain stuck in a bear. No, her mother's essence and personality will be lost and a wild animal will take its place forever. So these stakes are sold to us in the context that once the bear transformation is permanent, the queen's mind will be lost forever and she will live her life as a regular old bear. So again, mordu doesn't make sense. If we assume that the witch used the same spell, which she implies to have done, then we can infer that once Mordu's transformation became permanent, he also lost his human mind and started living like a normal bear. Except he's also immortal. Why? If Mordu blew his chance and there was no way for him to become human again, why would he be punished with an eternity as a bear? What purpose does that serve if he cannot grow as a person and reflect and change? True enough, Mordu wanted to change his fate, and becoming an unkillable bear certainly fits that bill, but what is the point of making him live like that endlessly? He can't learn a lesson or fix the rift with his brothers because they're dead, so again, why make Mordu suffer forever? Let him live his 25-ish years as a bear and die. Fate changed, he got what he wanted in some evil genie wish. End of story. Something somewhere went wrong, and the Wisps are mixed into that secret somehow. Alright, hear me out. The Wisps are not actual interactive characters in the film. They're otherworldly. And they're oddly not even used as a plot device. It's like the writer's room cut scenes that would have better explained these beings, and so they don't make any sense either. But when you look up what will-o'-the-wisps are in European culture, one of the answers is that they are the spirits of the dead, which is definitely what Brave was going for, as Mordu turns into a wisp once he is put out of his misery at the end of the movie. Now, let's think about when we see the Wisps in the film. They first appear when young Merida is alone in the forest, and the Wisps pop up to take Merida back to her family, but also right to where Mordu is. And to save his family from the big bear, the king, Merida's dad, ends up losing his leg. Later, when Merida is upset, Angus throws her and she ends up being in some ancient Stonehenge-style structure. And what's really interesting here is that if you look closely, these stones kind of resemble men. I have a suspicion that these giant rocks used to be crude statues of long-forgotten kings, similar to what we see in Atlantis: The Lost Empire. And something about this Stonehenge, to me, screams of being a place for rituals. I can't completely prove it, but that notion is supported, and I'll circle back to that in a minute. So Merida is baffled by these huge rocks. And then the Wisps return to take her to the witch's cottage, where Merida gets the spell that turns her mother into a bear. And the witch even describes Mor'du as being the last person who she made that spell for, which, again, shows us that the Wisps are taking Merida to places that involve mordu. Now, some people think that the witch is evil. I think she's more chaotic good. She's literally upset that Mordu wasn't satisfied with her spell, so much so that she doesn't want to continue making spells because of that. She just wants to carve her wood figures and be left alone. I don't get any sinister vibes from this lady. She just really seems to like bear themes. It's almost like she's a scientist so preoccupied with whether or not she could, she never stops to think about whether or not she should. So yeah, the witch isn't evil. The Wisps, though, they were plotting. The Wisps also appear to Merida and Elinor as a bear to take them to the ruined castle site, which is also where Mordu is living. And the Wisps lead Merida back to the Stonehenge area where Mordu is headed. The final wisp moment we get in Brave is when one of the heavy Stonehenge pieces falls on Mordu and smashes him, meaning if I'm right about those rocks being the statues of past kings, then it is reasonable to assume that they were the kings from Mordu's era. So just like Merida had to sew the tapestry back together as a symbolic effort of repairing her relationship with her mother, it was likewise a symbolic act that killed Mordu. He ends up banging into that rock until he crushes himself under the weight of his station as the person in line for the throne. But it was not the weight of that rock that stopped Mordu. He was the strongest bear ever and immortal. No. That faded statue would have been made in the likeness of Mordu's father or grandfather or some other direct ancestor. So symbolically, Daddy is the one who hurt that family and made those brothers at odds with each other, so Daddy had to be the one to step in to stop his son's destructive path. You know, if you back up and look at Mordu's situation, he was only mad at his brothers because his father wanted to divide the kingdom amongst all four of them and not give it all to Mordu, who was the oldest. So the father was breaking tradition, he was upsetting the normality of things, and Mordu was rebelling against that and taking it out on the wrong people. So knocking that stone figure over was Mordu really fighting his father and giving himself the closure he needed. Yeah, I told you, it works well if you think about it. But the Wisps put Merida in harm's way, hoping the Bear King would be the one to end Mordu, except that did not work. So then the Wisps took Merida to the witch, hoping that Merida could get something to stop Mordu again. But instead, Merida repeated the mistake of using the bear spell because the Wisps don't talk and don't give out adequate directions. So then a whole cat and mouse game was devised by the Wisps to get Mordu in the discount Stonehenge because that was a place of symbolic and ritualistic significance that could actually end Mordu's life. So the Wisps were trying to lead someone to their fate, but it was Mordu's fate that they wanted to seal, not Merida's. She was collateral damage to the will of the Wisps. But why would the Wisps care so much about Mordu and his fate and him being stopped? It's not like Mordu could hurt them, they're supernatural. Well, when Mordu is crushed to death, we see the spirit of a human figure, Mordu as a human, come out, bow, and turn into a wisp. And we can assume that that happened because Mordu was impacted by this curse. Who else do we know in the movie who was impacted by a curse and would have an interest in stopping Mordu and putting him out of his misery? The easy answer, in my opinion, is that those Wisps would be Mordu's brothers, who were killed as a direct result of the curse. See, I told you it all wraps in nicely if you just do a little bit of mental gymnastics. So the Wisps were Mordu's 3 brothers trying to stop Mordu and put him down while also giving him peace. Because there was no other way to stop Mordu. He was immortal while being trapped in a bear's mind with no way to stop himself. Go back and watch the movie with this darker context and try to tell me that I'm wrong. It fits really well. I might be overthinking it, but that's literally my job. Called the Wisps. Called the Wisps. Wisps. I feel like I say this so weird. Wisps. 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 And then the 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 Wisps return. And then the Wisps. And then the Wisps return. And the Wisps. And the Wisps. And the Wisps pop up. And the Wisps. And the Wisps. This word is so hard for me. Why won't my lips do it? Crisp. Wisp. Okay. And the Wisps. Crisps. That's it. It's the S at the end. Well, family members, we're almost done, but I want to invite you to hang out with me in some other places. I'm on Twitter and Instagram as my own personal self, and I have a Facebook page too, but I mostly just post photos over there. And sometimes people say, "Hey McGann, I want to mail you something. How do I do that?" Easy. Just click the About tab on my channel page, and my most current P.O. Box info will be right there. I also run another channel, the Family. It's really a hodgepodge channel where we might post anything. Oh yeah, and I also sell shirts and stickers and stuff with the Family and the Fangirl logos. If that is your cup of tea, I have a link in every description of every video. Finally, if you want to help out the Fangirl channel and make sure I'm putting out video essays for years to come, the best way you can help is by subscribing and watching more of my videos, whether they're new, old, whatever. Maybe even share 1 or 2 on social media, help spread the word. People who watch to the end of videos like you helps to tell the site, hey, this is a good video, we should recommend it to other people. So if you made it this far, leave me a comment of something like, hey, I made it to the end. Love ya. See you next time, family members. Bye.